I'm going to resize a column. Now, if you're using the on-object interaction, then you cannot resize columns if you have got these 4 square markers around the visualization. This is because you are in formatting mode. So what I'm going to do is just click away from the visualization and then click it again. And now I'm away from formatting mode and I can do things like resize columns. So let's see how we can do that. If you just go in between the columns, you can see that the mouse changes to this double-headed pointer. When it's like this, you can just click and drag to change the width of the column. Now you notice that Greater Manchester is now on 2 lines. It's still in the same row, but it's on 2 lines. And the reason for that is because word wrap has been enabled. If I scroll down to the values, open it, and click see word wrap, you can see it is on. If it was off, then you would have this ... towards the end of the column, indicating that there is more to see. So the question is, do you want to spend more space on rows, or do you want to potentially not show the entirety of the data in your columns? Now, if you can do that with individual columns, you can also do that with visualizations. So if you click on the visualization, you can see that there are these 8 little pointers all around. These markers are where you can drag the visualization. So you can drag it so that you resize it further down, or further across, or further down and across if you want. So I'm giving it a bit more width, and now I can resize the column so that there is no word wrapping required, and then I'll resize it so that it's a lot tighter. Now, if you want to move the visualization, then hover over any of these bits which are not these markers. Now, in other programs such as Excel, you might expect that the arrow changes to a hand. Well, here it doesn't. It still remains a mouse. And now I can just drag the entirety of the visualization to any other point on this page. So you can either drag from the very edge of the visualization, or you can drag from any other part. Now, you can also adjust the location in the formatting. Where in the formatting it is varies on what version of Power BI you're using. In earlier versions, it was in the General tab in a category called Properties. In this version, that is on the screen, it's in the Visual tab within Size and Style. And here you can see a sub-tab called Size and Position. And you can see we've got the X position, that's a horizontal position, and the Y position. So I could have a X position of 10, that will move it slightly further to the left, or 100, or 1000. 1000's too big for this particular page, so 500. Similarly, I can change the X position, so move it right at the top left. To do that, I would have the X position at 0, the Y position at 0, so no need to drag it and see if you can get it to top left fairly easily, but no need to even approximate it. You could just have 0 and 0. Similarly, you can change the width and the height. Now, while we're setting up the visualization, we should also think about people who've got certain disabilities that prevent them from reading what's on the screen. And we can set up something called alt text. And this is in the Properties or General tab, and here you can see the category alt text. So if I put this is my sales volume per region name, then whatever software, accessibility software they're using, when they have a look at this Power BI, they'll be able to see, or a bit more accurately here, this is my sales volume per region name. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to copy this visualization. Now I can do this in a few ways. First of all, I can go to the ribbon. Now you can't see the ribbon, I've turned it temporarily off. So I'm going to turn it back on by clicking on this drop down next to it. And if I want to remove the ribbon, I can do so by just clicking it again. So I'm going to copy, and again, I can go to Home, Copy, or I can press Ctrl and C. C for copy. So when you've done that, I can paste. Now that pastes the entire visualization. And to paste, you either press Ctrl and V, or you click on Home, Paste. Now, I can drag it around just like any other visualization, but notice it tries to align it with a few locations. So you can see this dotted red line down. the middle of the page. So it's trying to left align to the middle of the page. Alternatively, I can try and get it center aligned to the middle of the page or right aligned. But it will also align with other visualizations. So if I just move it up, you'll see that now it is both top and bottom aligned with both. Both visualizations are at the same top and the same height. Similarly, I can have them so that one is directly underneath another. So that's quite good if you literally were having one underneath each other. And here we've got them literally one underneath each other and at the same left and the same right. Now it is possible to overlap two visualizations. First of all, I'm just going to take one visualization. And you'll see that when I click on a particular visualization, first of all, we have all of these markers around, which denote that it has been selected. And secondly, we've got this new format menu, which is different to the format pane. This format menu only appears if you select a visualization first. And I want to have a look at the align. First of all, I can align a visualization to the left, the center, or the right of the screen, the top, the middle, or the bottom. So if I wanted it to be in the center middle, that was very quick to do. But of course you can do all of that with these little helper lines as well. There we go. But we can also use align with more than one visualization. So if I select not just one, but two visualizations, now how am I going to do that? Well, there are at least two possible ways. One way is to go from the top left-hand corner to the bottom right-hand corner and select the multiple objects. Now, alternatively, I need to click on the first visualization and then go to the second visualization, hold down the Control key and click. So now you can see both of these have been selected. So I can now align center, left, or right. And what this does is, if these visualizations are of differing widths, like this, then aligning left, center, and right will make these visualizations aligned. I mean, they will still be aligned if they are of the same width, but it's much more visual if they are of different widths. Similarly, if they're of different heights, so I'll just make this much taller, select both, click one, hold down Control, click another, then I can align top, middle, and bottom to, again, have various alignments. Now, if I just select the one again, you'll notice that there is another option available, distribute horizontally, distribute vertically. However, this still doesn't solve the question of what happens if you've got two visualizations that are literally right on top of each other. So now I'm getting these two visualizations to be exactly the same width and height, but you can see they overlap. Well, trouble is one of them has to be in front of the other, but you can select which one by clicking on a visualization and either bring forwards or send backwards. So imagine that you have got a series of playing cards, and one playing card, in this case this one, is behind but slightly above another one, so you can't see the bottom of the card. So that is what sending backwards does. It has it going all the way back to the end of the deck. However, bringing it forwards puts it further and further and further in front of the deck. So if there were 52 playing cards and it was right at the back, then bring it forward would make it 51st from the front, and then 50th, and then 49th. So any objects it's now in front of would be obscured by it. But bring to front brings it right to the front of the deck, to number one. So now you can see it is number one in the deck, right at the front. Similarly, send it backwards and send it to the back does the same. It send it back by one position or send it back all the way. So hopefully you won't have overlapping visualizations that often. But if you do, it's useful to know how you can actually deal with it. So you can have it aligned exactly, or you can have one on top of another when needed, but generally that's not a good idea. So now I'm going to get rid of this second visualization by just highlighting it and pressing delete, and that removes the visualization. Now, what if you have multiple visualizations set up and you decide that you want to change the style of them? So let's create a second visualization. I'm just going to click on this first one, press Ctrl and C for copy, click elsewhere, and Ctrl and V for paste. So now we have two visualizations, both with a title with a blue background, and both with a red border. So let's change this on one of the visualizations. So I'll click on the visualization, and I go down to the title in the format section, and in background color, I'm going to change that to a light red. And then the border, I'm going to go down and change that to black. So now we have a different style, and we want to change all of your other visualizations. Well, this is when the Format Painter could come in handy. Now, the Format Painter is something that is underutilized but is very useful in Excel. So if I have a cell, say C3, and another cell D5, and C3 has a yellow background and red foreground, and I want D5 to have the same, so I could go into D5 and I could change it, or I click on C3, I click on the Format Painter, and I click on D5. And now you can see that D5 has the same format as C3, even though the contents are unchanged. And it's exactly the same in Power BI. So I click on the source visualization, the one which has the formatting I want. I click on Format Painter, and then I click on where I want to apply it to. And now you can see that both of these visualizations have got a red title and a black border. Now notice it doesn't actually change the content, so let's change this content so that it doesn't have a region name. So I'm going to change this again so that the title, instead of having a red background, has a purple background. So again, I click on the visualization it's going from, click on Format Painter, and click on the visualization it's going to. So you can see the formatting has changed, but not the actual contents. So I'm going to press undo to get back to where I was. So Format Painter, it is very useful if you have got multiple visualizations and you change the formatting in one, and you want that to go across to other visualizations. I want to add an extra column to our visualization. Currently we have the sales volume per region name. I want to add the average price. Now, I can't just click or check or select average price right now, because if I do, it will create a new visualization. This is because I haven't selected which visualization I would want average price to be added into. So I need to select the current visualization, and you can see in the fields pane we have checked region name and sales volume. Those are the two that we're currently using. So to that I'm going to add the average price. So I'm just going to check it, and you can see we need a bit more formatting in terms of the columns. I can't see the column, so I'm just going to move it to the right, and there we have the average price. Job done. The average price is for Greater Manchester is £25 million. We can move on to the next video. Just wait a minute. The average price of a property in Greater Manchester is £25 million. That's about $38 million. I don't think so. Okay, let's just have a look at the data. We'll go to the data icon on the left-hand side, and we can see that the average price varies between about 40,000 and 147,000. So I'm guessing 25 million isn't about right. So what's happened? Well, what's happened is that even though this is called average price, the computer has identified this as something that you can total and measure, and it has totaled it. It hasn't averaged it. So what I need to do is change this from the sum of average price to the average, for example, of average price. And to do this, I need to go into the visualizations pane. Now you'd think I could stick in the fields pane. There's a huge number of options if with this dot 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 to the right, but not one of them is change this measure to. So what I need to do is therefore go to the visualizations pane, and I'll show you what's happened. Now, in the older version of Power BI, you would click on the Add Data to your visual icon, so you go away from formatting to Add Data. In the new version, you would need to go to the Build a Visual pane, and you can either have it as a pane, or you could have it next to the visual. Either one of those will work. And then you should go to the arrow next to the relevant field. And you can see that it is here that we can change the aggregation. how this field is calculated. So at the moment, the aggregation is sum. I'm going to click on average, and you can see that our average price goes down from the Beverly Hills $38 million mansions to something a bit more realistic, around £100,000, 130,000 US dollars. Notice that the total has also changed. The total used to say something like 154 million. Now I've changed this to an average. Then the total is now 97,000. Again, more realistic. So let's just have a look at those aggregations. That's a technical name for totaling. But it might not be a sum total, it could be an average. It's just making a summary. So we have sum, that's a total of all of the numbers. Average, so that's the mean average. We have another average called the median. So if you list up all the values in order, so suppose we had an 1, 1, 2, 3, 10. Well, 1 plus 1 is 2, 4, 7, 17, there's 5 items, so 17 divided by 5 is 3.4, there's your mean average. But the median average is the one in the middle. If you arrange it in order, so 1, 1, 2, 3, 10, the median average would be 2. So if I click on that, you can see it gives us a different sort of average. Minimum, that is the smallest amount, and maximum is the biggest amount. So we could see what is the peak for houses in the West Midlands, for instance, 163,000. Count is the number of values. Count distinct is a number of unique values. Usually use count distinct more for text, I would suggest, rather than numbers. And then standard deviation and variance, that is only for people who actually understand what standard deviation and variance are. So standard deviation is a measure of how spread out the numbers, and the variance is roughly what the average spread is. So if you've never used it, you will never need to use it, don't worry. I do use standard deviation for some things I do, but very rarely. So what I want here is, let's say, the mean average of the average price. So there we are, 97,000 overall. Now the problem comes is when I want to use this average price again. It's fine fixing it just the once. But suppose I'm going to create a new visualization, or maybe somebody else is going to create a new visualization, just going to check that and get a total of 154 million, and that's clearly not right. They would want something closer to the average price. Well, you remember near the start of this course I said that there were 3 stages of creating these visualizations in Power BI. First of all, you load the data. Then you transform it and model it so that it becomes the way that you want it. And then you create your visualizations. We've largely been looking at this third aspect, but we have to go a little into the second, making the data exactly as you would wish. To do this, we need to go to the Column Tools menu, but it's not on the screen. To get it to appear, we need to go to the Data or Fields pane and click on a column. This won't work if you go to the Visualization or Build a Visual pane. You need to go to the Data or Fields pane. Then the Column Tools menu will appear, and you can then click on it. You can see we have under the Properties the default summarization of sum. Now we can change this, so it's average, min, max, count, or count distinct. So right at the moment, when I add it to a new visualization, it's going to take the sum of it, so 154,000. But what if, by default, instead of taking the sum, we'll take the average? So now somebody else comes along in this model, clicks on this, he doesn't get an answer of 154 million, he gets an answer of around 97,000, closer to what we were expecting. So in this video, we've had a look at the problems with the aggregation, with the summarization. We've seen how you can change it in a particular visualization by going to the visualization panes, the fields section, and changing the aggregation for that one particular visualization. And this might be good if you want to have multiple of the same field. So this is the average of the average price, but suppose I wanted the minimum price and the maximum price. Well, the problem is I can't just check this average price a series more times because you can only check it once. If I check it again, it disappears. So what I need to do instead is drag it to the value section within the visualizations field. So that gives another average price, and I can do it again. If you're using the on-object interaction, you can also click on this Add Data. So that's in the Build a Visual pane or next to the visual. So this is very useful if you don't see the data pane, for instance. So I can click on Add Data and then select the table and the pane. So I'll just move this back. Now I'm going to change what these second two are for. So I'll click on this arrow and change this from an average to a minimum, and then change this next one to a maximum. Now you notice we've got average of average price, min of average price, max of average price. So I'm going to rename these. So the first one just says average price. So I could just double click on the field in the Build a Visual or Visualization pane, and now I can edit it. So I will say average space price, or in older versions, I would have the option, if I clicked on this arrow, to be able to rename the field. I haven't got that as an option with the arrow in the on-object interaction version. Instead, I have to do the very non-obvious thing of right-clicking on a field here. And here, in addition to seeing all of the aggregations, I can also rename the field as well as do a few more things. This is not an obvious way of getting to additional options. You'd think you'd be able to have a More button here in the Data section, but no, you have to right-click on the field to do this. So I will rename this one as Minimum Price, and I'll rename this one as Maximum Price. So in addition to this arrow where you can change the field that you're looking at, you've also got additional options if you right and click on a column as well. So there are business reasons why you might want to override the default summarization or aggregation. However, it is always good to ensure that the initial aggregation is actually realistic. A sum of the average price is not realistic. An average of an average price is. And you can change the default summarization by clicking on the field in the field panes and going to Column Tools and Default Summarization. Now you may have noticed that these numbers are formatted differently. The sales volume doesn't have a 1,000 separator, whereas the average price does and has 2 decimal places. Well, we can change the default formatting of any particular numeric field. So if I want to change the sales volume, I click on Sales Volume in the Fields pane and I go to Column Tools, and we can see here Formatting. Now there are several aspects to this formatting. First of all, the data type. So this says whether it is going to be a whole number or a decimal number, and if so, how many decimal places. Is it going to be a date or time? You can see date and time, date or time. Is it going to be text? Or is it going to be a yes or no, true or false? And then we have various formatting. So no real formatting is available for text. But for numbers, if I click on the sales volume again, we can see it can be formatted as a whole number, as a decimal number, so with decimal places, but the default number of decimal places is 0. So the only difference is actually nothing, because you can always add decimal places here. It's more of a declaration of intent rather than adding functionality. So it can be a whole number, it could be a percentage, it could be scientific, so that is saying 9 followed by 5 zeros. It could be general. So what's best for this? Well, I think what's best for this is it's a whole number, but this still hasn't got the comma in the decimal locator, the 1,000 separator. So I'll click on the comma, which adds in the thousands, and I could say how many decimal places I wanted as well. Now the average price is, in fact, a number in currency. First of all, we have auto number of decimal places. Well, actually, I don't need to know that. There's 8 pence with this price, so I'm going to take that down to 0. And what I'm also going to do is I'm going to add a currency. Now, there's a dollar symbol here. That doesn't indicate that everything is going to be formatted as dollars. If I click on it, you'll see that we've got common to currency symbols. So in my case, this is going to be the British pound. But further down, we have currencies from all over the world, both in terms of using symbols and in terms of using the 3-letter currency code as well. So GBP, for instance, for Great British Pounds. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to format this as pounds, English, United Kingdom. And in case you're wondering, yes, there's a difference with some of the locales. For instance, a euro sign in some locales can go after the number and sometimes before it. So this is why it's very specific. So I'm going to say this is English, United Kingdom. Now you can see that any changes to the formatting that I do are affecting the formatting that is live, that are used in visualizations which have already taken place. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this so that it is pounds and 0 decimal places. But what if I wanted one of these columns to be to 2 decimal places but not the others? You may notice that if I go to visualization fields values, that there is no change the format. However, it is available if I click on a particular visualization. I don't need to click on a particular column, go to format, and then scroll down to specific column. So you can see we've got 5 columns at the moment, and I can change the average price to be in a different number of decimal places. So I want this to be in 2 decimal places. And so you can see there is a 2. There, decimal places, there is no actual possibility of changing it so it doesn't show the currency symbol or the comma separator. But what you can do is change the units. So I could say I want this to be in thousands, 97,000. You could say I want it to be millions or billions or trillions. So you need to change the currencies and whether you're using the commas in the default for that particular field. But within a particular visualization, you can change the number of decimal places, and you can change whether it is being displayed in thousands, millions, billions, or trillions. Now, a quick look at dates. Dates, again, you can change the format. Needless to say, all of these to 1 decimal place doesn't actually affect dates. But here we can change the format so that it is a shorthand version or a longhand version. So it gives the technical definition afterwards, but basically concentrate on this first one. So Wednesday the 14th of March 2001 or Wednesday March the 14th 2001. You'll also notice at the bottom you can just have March 2015, or you can have March the 14th, or you can have year 2001 or year 01. All possibilities for formatting dates. So you can see that if you're formatting numbers or dates, you generally format the default, which will be used in all the visualizations. However, in a particular visualization, in a particular column, you can change the number of decimal places, and you can change whether it is going to be shown in billions or trillions by going to the formatting and specific column. In more modern versions of Power BI, you can also type the format directly into the format box, just like you would do a custom format in Excel. We'll have more details about that in the next video.